I had two choices, Mexico or Spain, and although they're both Spanish speaking countries, although the Spanish they speak is quite different, if you've been to either of these countries, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But other than that, they don't have a lot of things in common, and that was quite shocking to me. But in this video, I'm going to share with you why I ultimately chose Mexico over Spain. Now, let's go ahead and talk about why I was considering Spain. So, Spain was the first place that I actually lived abroad, or maybe is the second place that I actually lived there for an extended period of time. I was in Alicante, and then from Alicante, I went to other places. I spent time in Barcelona, Madrid, Bilbao, Malaga, Marbella, Ibiza, and so many other places that I'm not going to bother naming all of them. But Spain does have a ton to offer. The Spanish people are friendly enough. The climate in Spain is absolutely amazing, especially on the coast. It's really Mediterranean weather, so it's mild climates, generally decent weather all year around, and so that is obviously intriguing. Also, really great food, and the nightlife is decent. Alicante actually is kind of, I don't want to say like a university city because I don't know the actual statistics, but that is why the nightlife is decent in Alicante because it's a university town. You got a lot of people on what is it, Erasmus, I think it's called, where you if you live in a different European country, you can go to on Erasmus and essentially go to university in Spain. So, I mean, not super relevant to this video, but Spain had a lot going for it, and it is relatively affordable, especially coming from a place like San Diego, where I was coming from. So for so with that in mind, you got great weather for a relatively low cost living. I'm talking housing, food, nightlife, and I even had some healthcare stuff going on. Nothing major, but urgent care or what may have you. And I got admitted really promptly, and it was super affordable, although it was kind of weird because you had to they didn't take payment there. You had to go and pay at the bank. And yeah, it was an interesting experience to say the least. And also Spain, you have access to all of Europe, right? So it has a really great location, and it is a very, let's say, European type lifestyle. It's hard to explain if you aren't coming from America, but the lifestyle in Europe is just a little bit different. It's a more slower paced, and I wouldn't say relaxing. It's a different vibe entirely. And the cities are more walkable, and since the weather's generally great all year round, you can pretty much walk anywhere. And I will say, if you are a single guy, the Spanish women super approachable, super friendly, and really attractive. Pretty fun to go out with. But here in a moment, I will talk about some of the drawbacks of not just Spain, but Mexico as well. Because there are some things you should know if this is something that you are also considering for yourself. So, with that said, that was the pros of Spain. Now, the pros of Mexico. Mexico, extremely low cost of living. I mean, this was a few years ago that I was considering both of these places, but generally, the cost of living in Mexico is lower than in Spain. At the time, I was comparing Alicante to Mexico City, and I would say Mexico City probably was about on par with what I was paying in Alicante, if not maybe more expensive. But I was staying in the nicest area in Mexico City, and my building was a bit nicer, whereas in Alicante, your money certainly just doesn't go as far. So if your budget was, let's say, 1,500 for rent in Alicante, that 1,500 isn't going to get you a place in the heart of the city with an ocean view or things like that. Whereas 1,500 in Polanco, especially a few years ago, you're living in pretty much the high life, and you're going to be in the nice area, desirable area, and you're going to have a desirable condo or apartment. But with all that said, nowadays, I would 100% say Spain is going to be more expensive. Also, that's comparing Alicante, which is not a major city like Mexico City. So keep that in mind. If it was Barcelona or Madrid versus Mexico City, 100% Spain is more expensive. Not that it's not good value for your money, but it's going to be more expensive. So that wasn't really a major consideration, but Mexico City or Mexico in general is going to have better value for your money and a lower cost of living. Also, going to have exceptional food, and generally it's going to have a great climate, but it's going to have a little bit more variety because, I mean, this is a massive generalization, but Spain is just much smaller than Mexico. So you have a variety of different climates and lifestyles in Mexico, from the north of Mexico, pretty much the U.S. border, right, going down to Belize and some of those other places down there on the Caribbean, and then you could go to the Pacific side and what may have you. But it's a massive country, tons of different lifestyles that you could live in Mexico. And obviously, you have a bit better proximity to the United States because it's right there, and the time zone is a little bit more efficient depending on how important time zones are to you. I wouldn't say Europe is like the worst possible time zone. Obviously, I live in Thailand as well, and that is like a brutal time zone shift. So Europe isn't like the worst, but it is nice to be generally in the same time zone as the United States. I mean, it depends on where you are in Mexico, where you're coming from in the United States, but it's pretty much the same kind of thing where you're going to be like 2 hours or 1 hour different than Pacific time. And obviously, I was coming from San Diego, so that was really efficient. And then having my parents, specifically my mom, have easier access to Mexico than Europe just because she works a normal job and all that good stuff. And I really don't want to go back to the United States. I haven't been back to the United States. This is a little side tangent in like 2 or 3 years now. Not so generally my family, my grandparents come here to see me. I don't go back there. I don't go there for any reason. So that was kind of a massive consideration, just being able to have access to my family a little bit. Then culturally, I just felt like I got along with the Mexican people a little bit more than the Spanish people. I found that the Mexican people a little bit more welcoming, a little bit more receptive to foreigners. I think they're friendlier. I think they're more fun, more entertaining, and it's hard to put into words, but I think they are probably a little bit less woke and more interested in freedom, which is such a complicated topic. So, with that said, those are the pros of Mexico. Now, the cons. I would say the cons of Mexico, the infrastructure, not going to be as high for the most part as in Spain. I would say it's kind of like a grungier version of Spain, kind of like how Budapest used to be known as like the grungier version of Prague, and Prague is probably the grungier version of Warsaw. So the infrastructure simply just not on the same level. And then most people would say, on a safety note, that it's not going to be as safe as is in Spain. Although Barcelona is like the pickpocket capital of the world, and I never really felt unsafe in Mexico or Spain. So for me, it's not necessarily like a spectrum. It's either do I feel safe or do I not feel safe. And for me, I feel safe in both places. I am I've been here in Mexico wearing my expensive diamond chains, and I have no problems whatsoever. I've been on this bench recording videos, never had a problem. I'm recording videos right now with my camera out, never had a problem. Never had a safety problem, so it is what it is. But generally, I put it in the con because most people are going to say Spain is safer on average than Mexico. Now, the things with Spain, the cons, as I've kind of alluded to, the Spanish people, while they're friendly, they aren't as friendly as the Mexican people. The Spanish women, while friendly, not as friendly or fun as the Latina women, in my personal experience and in my opinion. that is, which is obviously subjective. You could find them more fun than I do, but I find them to be a little bit, let's just say, more dull. Now, yes, they are attractive, they're intelligent, and it's nothing against them. It's just the culture is different. And that's why I said I just felt like I got along with Mexicans more than I got along with the Spanish. Then, kind of along the same lines is Spain. Even when I was there, one of the most woke countries in the world. And I'm not really saying that's a pro or a con because it kind of depends on what you're looking for. And obviously, it's a country of, I don't know, 50 million people or something like that. So there's going to be plenty of non woke people. But especially recently, they have some insane policies regarding what some people would consider woke ideology. And you could kind of tell, even back when I was there, that they are a lot more feminist leaning and they are just generally one of the more woke countries I have ever been to. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't go there because it's woke or something like that. And frankly, it wasn't like a super negative in my experience. But generally, I just don't want to date women who are super duper feminist like that. And back at that time, I was single, so that certainly played a factor into why I chose Mexico. I like the better value for my money. I also like the proximity to the United States, so my family could come and visit, and ultimately, it just felt more like home. Now, with all that said, I absolutely love Spain. I was just in Spain a couple weeks ago. Absolutely love it. I really don't think you could go wrong with Spain, but I'm just giving you the reasons that I chose Mexico over Spain, although I think Spain has a ton to offer, and I do absolutely recommend it. Now, with all that said, we are going to wrap up the video here, and I will see you guys in the next video. If you spent time in both these countries, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. And as always, peace, much love.